Welcome to my podcast. I'm Manjit Kaur Ruprai and I'm a narcissistic abuse recovery therapist. This podcast series is about telling the stories of victims of narcissistic abuse who have sent me their stories to share anonymously to make their voices heard. If you have a story you would like me to tell about you, contact me via my website. Link is below. This is a story about a woman who contacted me to share her story about her relationship with her mum. Her name has been changed to protect her identity. I'm going to call her Julia. It is often said that the relationships we have with our parents shape us in profound ways. Sometimes, however, those relationships can carry hidden dynamics that only reveal themselves with time and reflection. Julia is sitting on her couch with a coffee as she tells me her story about her intricate web of family ties and dynamics of control in her shocking revelation that her mum could be a covert narcissist. Julia looked sad and tearful as she starts telling me her story. Julia is a 54-year-old white middle-class woman and has been married for 33 years with one daughter who has a family of her own. Julia is a grandma and has a wonderful relationship with her family. Julia's journey of understanding of her mum began with a series of puzzling observations, small inconsistencies and unsettling patterns with her interactions with her mum. Growing up, Julia always sensed something was amiss, but it wasn't until December 2023 that she began to unravel the truth, the shocking truth and discovery. Julia began to have clarity and discernment over the last 2 months that she suspects her mum is a covert narcissist. She is still trying to process this as she talks to me. This has been a deep shock to her, has offered her clarity and relief, but yet this feels so painful at the same time. It has been a profound awakening over the last 2 months when Julia began to question the bond with her mum and question the underlying dynamics of their relationship. Reflecting on past experiences, she realized a pattern of manipulation and emotional manipulation disguised beneath a facade of maternal love and concern. It was a sobering realization, but also challenged the very foundation of her understanding of family and paternal love. She did not want to accept the revelation as she has such a wonderful relationship with her own daughter and could not understand why her mum did not give her love. It was during Christmas Eve the light bulb went off for Julia when her mum was unwell and could not attend the family Christmas party. Julia and her daughter had a wonderful time during the family Christmas gathering and realised that this was because her mum was not there. Julia felt guilty even saying this, but they had a wonderful time without her. It was one of the best Christmases they had had. At most family gatherings, Julia's mum had to be the centre of attention, captivating everyone with her charm and charisma. Whenever the spotlight wasn't on her, she would appear distant, disinterested, almost as if she were performing for an audience rather than engaging authentically with her loved ones. But it felt different this time, as she wasn't there. She has felt extreme guilt for even thinking this. Julia and her daughter discussed after the party that this time there was no guilt tripping, no devaluing, no put-downs, no dramatic and immature behaviour, no backhanded compliments, all because her mum was absent. They left the family party on a high as she could be herself and not feel like she was on eggshells around her mum. This was the first family gathering she has had a good time at, and she could be herself. This felt amazing to Julia and to really connect with family. After the family party, things changed, and she reflected back on her childhood. What got Julia thinking was when her dad made a comment that Julia had wonderful and fun times with her daughter, just like Julia had with her mum as a child. Julia reflected on her dad's comment for a few days and tried to think of just one fun, happy activity her mum did with her growing up. Julia couldn't think of one. Julia felt sad and anger that she could not think of one single fun moment with her mum. She felt awful that she couldn't think of anything. Julia looks back at her childhood and tells me that she remembers cooking dinners from the age of 11, cleaning the house, babysitting a sister who was 4 years younger than her, and doing the laundry. She recalls spending her childhood doing lots of household chores, rather than other children having fun, going on holidays, and spending time with friends. Julia could only remember doing a lot of household chores. At the time, Julia thought this was normal, as that is all she knew. As a child, Julia felt neglected, and her mum showed little emotional availability, and Julia found she often had to figure things out on her own or didn't feel comfortable enough to share or to ask about her needs, because her mum would just deflect the conversation or ignore the problems. She looks back and realises her mum was dependent on her and often burdened her with her own problems. Now looking back, Julia feels she has lost her childhood and she does not recall many happy moments with her mum. She often found she was caring more for her mum than her caring for Julia. This could not have been right, reflected Julia. Julia also recognises that her dad is her mum's enabler, and he did little to protect her either. She looks back and realises that as soon as she was at the age to leave her parents' house, she did. Julia told me she was blessed to have met someone and to get married at 21. She has a great husband who is supportive of her. She has lived away from her parents for the last 28 years or so. This has been peaceful and nice as she only saw her parents every so often, and she got the space she needed. Time went on, and Julia didn't give her complex family dynamics much thought. Her parents are aging, so Julia offered her parents move near them, so they moved around 3 years ago. Julia's sister was unable to provide as much support to their parents, so Julia offered for them to move near her. Julia and her husband opened their home to them, and for 6 months they lived with them. Julia felt like she was going back into her childhood, but the only difference was that she was older. Memories flooded back of her unhappy childhood, and it was like reliving the past. Julia felt guilty because her parents had aged and she shouldn't be thinking bad thoughts about her childhood and mum. Just like when she was a child, Julia's mum made condescending, backhanded remarks about her and her dad and other family members. Julia could feel the negativity in her household, and this made her feel like a prisoner in her own home. She knows that her mum has always pushed against normal boundaries, has always made passive-aggressive remarks and then smirks afterwards. But mostly her mum has a tendency to play the victim when she does not get her way or a boundary is established. She has noticed more clearly that her mum pouts, cries, and has temper tantrums when she does not get what she wants, just like a child not getting their way, only just her mum is much, much older now. Julia realised that her dad has been her mum's biggest enabler, with her often calling out to him to rescue her, and he would, offering her mum great comfort and validation. Julia would think, what 77-year-old acts like this? Often Julia's dad has become irritated with Julia for making her mum upset. This caused more confusion that there is something wrong with Julia, and why can't she just get on with her mum? Julia often found herself asking her husband, why does my mum not like me? What's wrong with me? In the fall, Julia's friend reached out to her for support. Julia's friend is in a toxic relationship and could be with an overt narcissist, and she's making plans for her future to leave the relationship. After hearing her friend's story, Julia became curious about narcissism, so she began scouring the internet on anything related, reading, following Instagram accounts including mine and countless others. After reading and watching countless videos, Julia connected the dots and discovered her mum is a covert narcissist. She is loved by everyone, and she has a public display that is different to the display at home and with Julia. Her mum is not a diagnosed narcissist, and this will never happen, but the countless things she has read about and videos she has watched led her to believe she has all of the traits. Julia's mum has depression and anxiety and often lays on the couch for days at a time, crying, and then perks right up and be on top of the world. She has always been very up and down, which has impacted Julia. Now that her parents have moved out after 6 months of staying with them, she has noticed that when Julia and her husband visit her parents, she's sullen and downcast. But by the end of the visit, she is perky and filled up, leaving Julia drained and tired by the end of the visit. Julia's parents have a doctor that visits them at home for their health needs. She has noticed this provides a huge source of ego boost to her mum. Julia's aunt, her mum's sister, has said that Julia's mum is a hypochondriac and has always sought attention from others. Looking back at her childhood and the instability of this, she realises that it was not perfect. Her parents have moved geographic locations about 23 to 24 times in their 57 years of marriage. That is a lot. By the time Julia was in 2nd grade, they moved a dozen times. Everywhere they moved, they found supply through churches they attended or were part of the leadership team. Her parents would be heavily involved, and she tells me that if you were to meet her mum at church, you would think she is the most cheerful person, kindest and charming, and would do anything for you. But it is really quite the opposite. Julia recognises that her mum befriends people who will do everything for her, the leadership, the church, or people in important positions all feed her ego. As soon as she gets what she wants and has attended these organisations, she gets in the car to drive home, and she sighs and is exhausted. The mask comes off because she begins to criticise and put people down. She has witnessed this herself. Julia suspects that her dad has stayed with her mum because his faith doesn't allow for divorce unless infidelity or physical abuse. But she knows he has suffered mental and emotional abuse himself. She cannot prove this, but she knows her dad has been abused by her mum, and she has seen this on many occasions, the devaluing, emotional abuse and name-calling and talking at him. Julia feels bad for her dad, but she cannot do anything to help him. Julia has 2 siblings, and all relationships are strained. None of them barely talk with one another. Julia's older brother is estranged from the family about 7 years ago, while her sister and Julia supported their mum and dad. All these years, Julia believed her brother was at fault, but she was wrong. She recognized he had to get away. She realizes that her and her sister could have been the flying monkeys, but just didn't know it at the time. Now that Julia is looking at the family dynamics from a different lens, she decided to reach out to her brother in the hope that they will heal in time, discuss their childhood, and move forward. Julia is so grateful that she had this revelation, beginning with her own time in therapy several years ago. At the time, Julia was having some marital problems and realized she didn't know what boundaries were, and that she allowed people to push against hers while she pushed against theirs. Every day she continues to see how things weren't right growing up. Julia's husband has been instrumental to this discovery. Julia continues on her healing journey whilst helping her daughter, who may be on the same path with her covert narcissistic husband. Julia is figuring out boundaries with her mum and realizing that limited contact is working for her mental health. Although Julia cannot get her childhood back, she's at the point where she feels empathy for her mum because she has psychological issues and this is beyond her control. She goes in between sadness for her dad and asking why he didn't protect them. It helps to think that this is the life they chose, and she did not. She was just the helpless child. Julia has had so many positive women and other mums in her life, and she chose to do things differently than her mum. For this she is blessed. Julia knows her healing will be a lifelong journey, and establishing boundaries will be an ongoing process and of courage and self-awareness. Julia has become better at asserting her own needs and recognizing that it's not selfish to prioritize her emotional health. She continues to limit contact and creating distance with her parents when necessary, while also seeking support from trusted friends and family and her therapist. She has to reshape the dynamics of her family relationships on her terms. To anyone struggling with the realization of a parent's narcissism, I want to convey a message of hope and empowerment. You are not alone, and your feelings are valid. Prioritize your well-being. Set boundaries unapologetically, and surround yourself with a supportive network of individuals who uplift and validate your experiences. Remember that healing is a journey, and it's okay to seek help along the way. Please like and share. If you have a story you would like me to tell anonymously about you, email me via my website. Thank you for tuning into this episode.